Hello and welcome to a little show we like to call Tailgate Talk. My name's David. I'm here with my brother Nick, your two co-hosts. Nick, say hello to the people.
What? How we doing? Let's talk football.
Yeah, let's talk some football. So if you couldn't tell, we're both some Clemson fans here, so we just wanted to, you know, have a little bit of a fun time talking about the latest games and current state of college football. So let me go ahead and let's get started with the recap of last week's game. So Clemson took on NC State this past week in the Valley. Uh, Top 10 matchup. We had the number 5 Tigers against the number 10 NC State Wolfpack. Both coming in undefeated. Uh, Looking for a huge win. Clemson already a 2-0 record in the conference. NC State so far only playing out of conference games. Both teams looking to start to take that driver's seat in the Atlantic Division. Uh, we had the Tigers come out with a win, won 30-20. Honestly, I thought that it was a pretty good game showing for the Tigers. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, especially what you said with both teams trying to get in the driver's seat. You got to think with Clemson's win at Wake last week, the winner of this game kind of firmly cemented themselves as the team to beat in the Atlantic Division. And it didn't hurt that Wake Forest also ended up beating Florida State. So major implications in the division and the conference race as a whole. And I just think Clemson showed that they were the better team. NC State has a great foundation. They have a great defense. Their offense is electric. I just think that when it comes down to it, I think Clemson kind of showed that they're still the premier team. I think that coaching definitely was a factor in this game. I think both teams looked ready, but I think Dabo was able to kind of ignite the fire a little bit underneath Clemson, and this was a close game. Like going into that drive right before halftime, NC State had the chance to take a lead and get the ball back at half to kind of really, and in essence, start to put things away. But I said it to the person I was standing next to watching the game, like Clemson's tempo just shows that they are a very good tempo team. And it's all about winning those final four in the first half and the first four of the second half. And Clemson did that with the touchdown drive, then the 3-and-out to start the second, and then touchdown right after that. So I think that it was a good ACC matchup. It showed that these two teams are very good, and I'm very happy that the Tigers pulled it out.
Yeah, can't agree more. That way to end the drive, the pass at the end of the first half. Clemson able to go down, get a touchdown, and regain the lead after NC State put together a really good drive. Aided with some penalties, but refs going both ways with some calls. Uh,
Honestly, you'll definitely hear a bunch of. I mean, I know going to high school in North Carolina, I had a bunch of state fans be coaches of mine, friends of mine, and I heard from a couple of them that they were a little upset with the officiating. And I looked at them and was like, you can't really complain about them because they were pretty bad for both sides. Like it'd be one thing if NC State got hosed a couple times and Clemson kind of skated by, but I've kind of come around on that targeting call. I could see why they called it on McCuba, but that pass interference, it still
that
haunts
pass
me. Like
interference.
how do you defend better than that? Like I'm playing football, like you're taught, look for the ball, play the ball, and don't maul the other guy, and you'll be fine. It looked to me like he turned around, he had to swat that. I just think that was a little bit of sour grapes, as some family members of mine said that I was acting like during the game, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's momentum shift for sure. You look at you look at that. If NC State's able to hold on to the lead, go into the half, and then come out with the ball, you're looking at a completely different game for sure. I mean, that first half was a couple of haymakers of drives. We had 2 drives total in the first quarter, both where
Yeah.
the offenses look to be able to move the ball, and you get down and the defenses both made stands deep in their own territory. NC State came up with a really good goal line stand, a couple of straight plays, and Clemson was able to replicate that as well against NC State's offense. It was just, really tough, gritty game in the first half. And then the second half was more the same, with Clemson able to just pull out a little bit and kind of get to that comfortable lead before NC State was able to tack on that late touchdown to bring it back within 10.
Right.
Stats wise, you look at it, I mean, both quarterbacks throwing for over 200 yards, both with a touchdown, Leary with an interception.
I don't know if that
You've got
interception was really on Leary though. That was definitely. I mean, you could argue that that the receiver could have stopped, and it was a timing play. It did hit off the receiver's hand, so I don't know if I'd use that as a knack on Devin Leary. I think he played a great game, but I do think that Clemson's defense kind of did force that in a way.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the stats here, we're looking at, the average yards per pass per completion for Leary 5.2, DJ 7. That's nothing crazy. That's not that's showing, each pass is a harder and pass, moving the drive. Nothing came easy for either team. I think the big key was in the running game. I mean, Clemson,
Oh
they
yeah.
only averaged 3.8 yards per game per rush. Ended up with 145 yards, 2 touchdowns by DJ. He was kind of he and Sipley were the two workhorses, both with 14 carries. But I mean, they were keying in on Skip the whole time, looking to try and keep him from busting it out. Yeah, his longest run was 12 yards.
Right.
And then you look on the other side, the NC State's rushing game, and they had 34 yards total, averaged 1.6 yards per rush. I mean, that's making you very, very one dimensional there. You're not going to be able to move the ball on Clemson's defense if you're only throwing the ball, unless you got Wake Forest receivers out there just catching bombs.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
what else can you do?
I definitely think that these past 2 weeks, in a way, we saw the good of the Clemson defense, we saw the ugly. I think the game plan now is that unless you gotta, if you're gonna run the ball against Clemson, you gotta do it effectively in order to beat them. Because if you're running for 1 yard a carry, that's not going to beat this team, especially in a raucous environment that Death Valley was last Saturday night. You can't rely on the passing game unless you're Wake Forest. And even then, Wake Forest receivers best in the ACC in my opinion. I think Sam Hartman's a great quarterback. I like him a lot. I do think that some of those numbers were a little inflated due to the injuries in the secondary and the inexperience showing from the corners. But I think the corners were challenged in practice this week, and I think they came out and showed that they were not happy with that performance and that they wanted to show that wasn't what is normal. That was just kind of like a one game anomaly.
And Nick, tell me about about what you thought about the crowd and the whole atmosphere. You were on the field. For those who don't know, Nick is is working for the Clemson athletic department in some capacity. Is it IPTE or
So
what's the
I work with the event operations staff. I am in charge of pulling the field goal net for the home games, and it was that I always loved going to Clemson games and hearing the first CLEMSON chant, like when they're running down the hill. I love hearing the echo because that's normally when the crowd's at their like most hyped up. Like it's the anticipation, it's the excitement. I don't think I mean, I've been to so many Clemson games and I've been on the field every game this year. That was probably the loudest I've ever heard it. Being on the field and seeing the lights go out and the flashing lights and I got to give credit to the department that's in charge of that. They've done a very good job of creating an environment that is electric, to say the least. Like goosebumps were on my arms the entire pregame. the running down the hill, the we will rock you. And every third down you could hear, like, it was loud. And I was in front of the NC State band, so it was a little it was loud for me the whole game because whenever they did something good, of course they were yelling. But that was the most hyped up I've seen Death Valley, I think, since the Auburn game against Auburn in 20, I want to say it was 2017 when Kelly Bryant was quarterback and it was 14-6. That game where we sacked Jarrett Stidham 11 times. That was probably the loudest I've heard the Death Valley. A quick story about that. I'll always remember after we sacked him 11 times. There's an Auburn fan up in my section. He goes, "We can't throw the ball. We got to do something." He was so mad. It was so funny. That brought a smile to my face. That was awesome.
Nothing like an angry fan to give you a laugh, right? I
Especially
mean,
an
yeah, for
SEC fan.
me, my first year at Clemson was the 2016, 2017 year where we went to the national championship, knocked off Bama in that 35-31 game, the
Yeah,
famous catch by Hunter Renfro. I was lucky enough to have game day against Louisville for that game with Lamar Jackson. That
right.
and this game gave me the same type of vibe. The crowd was electric then. It was electric this past weekend. I mean, the whole stadium was shaking. It was
Art,
it was just unreal to feel the all of the fans completely into it and just having a blast. I mean, you watch that student section and they were ready to go bananas.
oh yeah.
So it was one of the unreal types of environments that you find in college football, and the whole pageantry of the lead up to the game, the having game day there, and then the threat of the hurricane that veered off and didn't give us any kind of impact really here, luckily. Thoughts and prayers to all those in Florida and on the
Yeah.
coast. But you get to the game, and then the whole anticipation with the pregame video where you've got Ben Boulware just getting you all hyped up, letting we're ready for some goal line stands, we're ready to make some amazing catches, and then you watch the bus come around and the whole light show and everything. It's just it's like upping the intensity to an 11.
I
It's something that I think that they found a really good formula for these night games.
And that's where I think you have to give a lot of credit to the people in charge of coming up with those, the creative team, the marketing team, just creating that environment. It's not an easy thing to do. So in order and doing it so well, it's awesome to see. It's awesome to be a part of. And going back to what you're saying with the stadium shaking, our dad he has tickets in the very top row of the stadium. He said he felt a little uneasy because he just like it was swaying, like the stadium was shaking, like he was nervous. So great environment by the Clemson student body and the parents and fans just coming from all over. It was awesome to see. It did
Yeah,
help that we did have game day. So
yeah, it did for sure. Let's focus a little bit more on the Clemson team. We a lot of hype came in on about the defense this year. They looked really good against Georgia Tech, and then against Furman and Louisiana Tech, and then Wake Forest. It looked like they took a step back. I mean, injuries obviously playing some role, but it seemed like a lot of it was still trying to figure out the identity of this team. The D line was supposed to be the strength and the kind of the workhorse, and then we had a bunch of young guys in the secondary that were going to have to grow up really quick. And the philosophy between traditionally with Brent Venables, we always were a heavy man defense, blitz like crazy. With Wes, we're still I think he was still trying to figure out what was best for this team.
yeah.
And I think that he started to get that sorted out. Last night, I mean, he was named, I think, ACC Coordinator of the Week this week
Oh,
because of
was
his
he?
work. I believe so. Uh, we'll fact check that later with the guys with the math budget. We have no math budget. Um, but then so the defense was expected to be the strength, and then the last three games, it didn't seem like they were quite up to snuff. but the offense is what's been the revelation this year, specifically with DJ and his resurgence back to that Notre Dame form when he was just on fire his freshman year. There's a lot of anticipation last year, expecting him to take the team where we needed to go, get us back to the playoff, and be a dominant team through and through. And he went through some growing pains. Nick, what do you think has been the biggest change this year from last year for him?
I think the losing of the 30 pounds is definitely very, very helpful for him in the run game. You see him like when he broke that long run. I think it was in the second quarter, heading towards the hill. That was a nice burst to see him have. I think for like the main, other than that, his confidence level has to be through the roof right now. It's always nice to see the numbers kind of back up what you're feeling in practice and what you're feeling you're capable of. It also helps that his wide receivers, knock on wood, have mostly stayed healthy this year. The O-line has been healthy. They've been kind of having that continuity week to week, and they're getting better, as evidenced by the no sacks let up this week, which is huge. I think I've always been on the train, and you know this from last year, that I always believed in DJ. I thought that DJ was the guy. I think he was just dealt a very hard hand last year. I always knew that he had this in him. It was just getting that confidence, getting that continuity week to week where you know who you're throwing the ball to. And that's important more than anything, is building that chemistry and just building that relationship. You saw it with Bo Collins, that they had a relationship through high school, so that way it's better for them or it's easier, I should say, to kind of link up on the field. So I think that all the factors of having the same O-line week to week, having the same receiver core, having the same running backs, I think that has allowed him to grow his confidence, as well as losing 30 pounds in the offseason.
I think too, for him, with that confidence has come just a more calmness. You see him working through his progression. The tip touchdown pass or down to the 1 yard line that NC State thinks is a fumble. That replay, great times. Got to keep looking at that, I guess. But ruled down at the 1. That was his 5th read. He looked first to the right for 2 reads, had a high-low combination that was completely covered by NC State's 3-3-5, which is just designed to prevent those big plays.
Yeah.
Moved across to the middle, still had nothing with his tight ends in the middle, and then finally found Sipley on what looked like honestly an improvised route. One of those where the play starts to break down, and he went for a go route and just found a hole, and DJ led him perfectly. It's just the savviness is starting to come back, where you're seeing him take what the defense is giving him, not get flustered, not try and force things. I think he's thrown maybe 2-3 balls that are in harm's way the whole season so far.
Right.
Still missing on a couple of throws, but that's expected. But the big thing is taking care of the ball. And through 5 games, he's got 1 interception on a tip pass, I think it was.
It was a tip pass against I forget who it was against. I think it was Furman, right?
It was Furman. Go Dins.
Roll Dins. That's another thing. I wanted to give a shout out to my boys at Furman. I played summer there. Decided to leave. It wasn't for me. But I love those boys. I know I haven't really given them much chatting. I should have reached out more, but I felt a little awkward. But shout out to them. They've played Clemson. Honestly, I think they played him better than some Power 5 teams like Georgia Tech. I think they played them better than Louisiana Tech did. And they showed that they are one of the premier FCS teams. So rolled in.
Yeah, rolled in. So it's something to look forward to now. We've got Boston College up next. I think we'll go into a more in-depth preview of that game later this week. But it's Clemson right now is holding the keys to their destiny within the ACC. They've got the driver's seat, and they just got to keep winning to hold on to it.
Quick note, we will talk about it later, but quick note on that BC game, that is their red bandana game. So,
oh yeah, that's a great point, Nick. Great story there. The what we have a Boston College alum back during 9/11. I think he played for the lacrosse team, right?
Lacrosse.
And he ended up joining the New York Fire Department, and selflessly lost his life saving multiple people out of the Twin Towers during that awful event. And
thank you, Wells.
Yeah, and so ever since then, Boston College has honored him every year with a red bandana game, and we've been lucky. We've had a couple of Clemson games that have been that red bandana game. Awesome to see that whole tribute. I mean, it's a real special event. If you got a chance to tune in on Saturday at prime time, look out for that. They'll be wearing special uniforms, and it's just a really cool event.
Yeah.
So, college football playoff changes. You can see here on the screen, we've got what would have been last year's playoff bracket if we had the expanded 12-team playoff, which will go in effect as of right now. I think it's 2026. Could come in as soon as 2024 if they can get the TV deals sorted out.
We'll see. I have a feeling they're gonna try to get that in as soon as possible. That's just more money. I guarantee you they will try to get it in by next year. But I think it is either 2025 or 2026 that they officially started.
For those of you who have been living under a rock and don't know what is going on with the bracket, basically we're going to expand from that 14 playoff where the top 4 teams play in 2 of the New Year's 6 bowls to a 12-team playoff where the first round, top 4 teams from the highest ranked conference champions, keep that in mind. So you have to be a conference champion to be one of the top 4 seeded teams. Gets a bye week. And so then the first round is played where the higher seed gets to host with these different matchups, and then go on to a New Year's 6 bowl to play against the top 4 seeds. In this graphic, it says, you'd play it in the that second round in the higher seed home stadium. That is not what I've heard. I think it's what I'd prefer that. I think that would be awesome to get as much into the home teams fields as possible. Just add that to the matchup. But I think it ends up being where the New Year's 6 bowls would all be taken up by the second and semifinal rounds.
I think that's probably what they're going to do, just to increase the value of those bowl games with those marketing sponsorships and all that. I agree. I think it would be cooler if it was on site for the semifinal, or not the semifinal, the quarterfinal games. I think it would help the local communities out that kind of thrive. Clemson, for example, I guarantee you the businesses and the stores downtown would love an extra game and game day merch, especially with the added lure of it being a playoff game. But I do understand why they would decide to make it at the neutral site bowl games, just to kind of increase the weight of those games.
I get it too. The thing I'm worried about is that if you all of a sudden have 2 rounds at these bowl sites, that's a lot of money you're asking all of the fans of these teams to now spend to get to those games. So I think you can see attendance for the second round and maybe even the semifinal round being affected by that. Because now, if you look at it like that, say you're Alabama here and you got to play in let's say it's the Peach Bowl for the first one. I mean, that's not too bad. Peach Bowl's in what, Atlanta? So
Also, add in the
you got
fact
to
that they would have to play the SEC championship in Atlanta too.
right. So you're looking at, they play the Peach Bowl in Atlanta against, say, Ole Miss here, and then they go on to the Cotton Bowl and they play Georgia, and the Cotton Bowl in Texas, and then they have to go to wherever the playoff is. That's three different cities, three different um, times that you're asking fans to book hotel rooms where they're going to inflate the prices like crazy with these events. It's just that's what this country will do. It's capitalism. It's supply and demand. If you've got people wanting to go to these games, then you're going to find the hotels are going to have to meet that demand. Ooh, that's good. So we got to move on a little bit quick here. We got a bit of
All right.
a Zoom thing. We got 10 minutes. We're going to rapid fire here real quick. So what do you think, Nick, with, conference realignment with the playoff? And what do you think about that?
Personally, I think that we may be losing a bunch of traditional rivalries, but I think it's inevitable that it's going to become the SEC and the Big Ten, and then the rest of them are just going to be kind of there. In terms of Clemson survival, I think that we need to go to the SEC. I think it'd be funny because we could try to win the SEC before South Carolina does, and we know they sure as hell ain't winning it anytime soon. I would have preferred to keep the conferences the way they were and kind of just like makes if it made sense for like some of the group of 5 teams to kind of make the jump, but unfortunately with UCLA and USC moving to the Big Ten, the geographic argument kind of went out the window. Yeah, I hope that Clemson does make it to the SEC at one point. I think that we can finally show people that we can beat SEC teams regularly, and it's not so bad. So
My thought on that, though, is that now with this new playoff expansion where the top 6 conference champions are guaranteed the playoff, I think that stymies a lot of the need for a team like Clemson, for, the Florida State to move out of the ACC. You just go win your conference and you're in. You're more than likely not going to get that bye week at that point. So maybe that puts a pause on it and stymies it a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see.
yeah.
So final segment that we're going to hit here for this show, we're going to talk about our top 25 plus 5, so our top 30. I'm up first. These are my rankings so far through 5 weeks. Got Ohio State 1. I think that they've just been a very complete team, scoring up a lot of points. Granted, I don't think that some of their competition hasn't been as good. I mean, you've got Notre Dame, who has struggled since, lost to Marshall. They're 2-2. That hurts Ohio State's resume. But right now, I think that they're a dangerous offensive team. So I think they stay there at 1. Alabama, they've had a couple of games outliers. The 1 point win against Texas against their second string quarterback doesn't look great. And then you've got the win against Arkansas, where they started to let Arkansas back into that game before their backup quarterback just went off crazy. Because of that, I'll keep them at 2. Georgia's got 2 straight games. Kent State and Missouri. Missouri, man, how do you look that bad against Missouri? God, I was hoping Missouri was going to pull that one out. SEC, it's hard to win on the road in the SEC, says Kirby Smart. I'd say bowl. So I put them at 3 behind Bama. I mean, they're on the verge of. I'll keep moving them back if they keep looking like this. They got to be careful. Clemson at 4, we've talked about. I think their offense much improved. Michigan, they got to play somebody, man. Iowa and Maryland don't count, but they're going to start playing people soon. That's why I got them behind the Tigers. Southern California starting to struggle a little bit when it comes to scoring with these Pac-12 teams. So I need to see them pick it up. Oklahoma State looking good. Winning good games. I can't wait to watch how they finish out their season. Tennessee and Ole Miss having great seasons, and Penn State as well. They're solid top 10 teams right now. Utah responding well after the loss to Florida. looking good again. I'll put them right outside on the fringe. NC State at 12, I think, because of the just the way that they have looked so far this year. They didn't give me any pause with how they played Clemson. I thought that they showed that they were a team that's tough. That's going to be. So I'm going to put them right there at 12. I'm not going to punish them too much for losing to the number 4 team in my rankings, number 5 in the AP. So I'm not going to drop them too far out of the top 10. Kentucky, Kentucky breaking my heart. God, I love that. The way that they looked against Ole Miss. I think that I can't punish them that much, so I'm going to keep them one spot ahead of where Ole Miss was. Wake Forest, yeah, I think they might be the second best team in the ACC. We'll find out when they play NC State, but for now, I'll put them at 14. I just think that NC State had a tougher situation to go into and played really well. That's why I have them that way. Oregon rebounding nicely after that brutal loss to Georgia. So they just got to keep it up. I'm giving a lot of love to Kansas, man. Kansas deserves to be ranked. They should have been ranked 3 weeks ago in the AP. So we'll give. They got game day. Let's see what they can do. And I think they're playing TCU, who I've got right behind them. So TCU was a big win against Oklahoma. They're making Brent Venables look silly with that defense. Man, I hope he fixes that up. But TCU is putting up points. Almost scored 62 before Judge did.
He actually just hit
DTR.
62.
Oh wow. UCLA with DTR, they're going to be good. They need to get more fans in the stands, but they're going to be a tough team in the Pac-12. BYU's been solid. Syracuse, I think, is going to be a darling of the ACC if they can keep things going. They're going to come into Clemson either 5-1 or 6-0, and that's insane. They could be already bowl eligible going into the Clemson game. So good for Syracuse. Way to keep rolling, boys. Love Dino. He's got something going on right there this year. Kansas State also beat up on Oklahoma. They're solid team within the 25, I think. Washington, losing to who they lose to again?
They lost to UCLA.
UCLA, yeah, you losing to UCLA, you gotta drop there. Too many games. Can't believe I forgot that. Florida State looking good so far. Again, they got that win against LSU, who I put right on the fringe of the top 25. So I put them at 23. You got to stay ahead of who you beat. Cincinnati, not top of the rest outside of the Power Five, but they're looking solid this year still. The AMU, I want to give some love to, man. They're getting a raw deal not being able to be in a bowl game this year because they just transferred to the FBS. So they are looking really good. So I want to reward them with that top 25 ranking. I put LSU and Mississippi State at 26 and 27. I mean, God, you guys, what you doing messing around with A&M and Auburn? You shouldn't be doing that. So you can't be in the top 25 yet. Washington State also a fringe team. Baylor too. These guys both, looking pretty good with some room for improvement. I'm expecting some big things. And then Arkansas, you had a raw deal going up against Alabama. Man, played them, got back within it, but couldn't keep on. All right, Nick, you're up. Rapid fire, 2 minutes.
All right, Bama looking good on offense, except for that Texas game. Backup quarterback for them looked electric in limited time. Ohio State, again, offense is a juggernaut. Defense looking good. I'm excited for them to start getting the bulk of their schedule. Georgia looking a little suspect against Kent State, Missouri, but obviously still one of the best teams to beat. I think that they're going to do pretty well. I think they'll figure it out. Clemson, obviously, 2 top 15 wins, only team with 2 wins against currently ranked AP top 25. Michigan hasn't played anybody. I think that they're going to start getting into the bulk of their schedule. USC, I'm a little iffy on. Oklahoma State, looking good. Tennessee, Ole Miss, looking good. I'm excited for that Tennessee-Alabama game coming up. Penn State, looking good. Utah, NC State, good. Wake Forest, good. Kentucky, but pretty good. Oregon, I think they got lucky that they're still ranked that high. BYU, same thing. TCU and Kansas, very interesting matchup with Lawrence. Go Jayhawks. UCLA, offense looking good. Kansas State made Oklahoma look really bad. James Madison, shout out the Dukes. Syracuse, love Dino. Think he's doing a great job. Excited to see how they do. Washington again. Wish they would, or they wish they could have get that UCLA game back, but they're still looking good. Cincinnati will come back to the top 25 poll. Florida State, you suck. Just kidding. They look good. Arkansas, I think that they are still a great team. Just had a tough time. Mississippi State and LSU kind of have to start doing better there. Baylor and Washington State. A Baylor, Washington State, keep it up.
Yeah. So sorry, we'll do better next time with our time management, guys. This is Tailgate Talk. Can't wait to hear from you next. Go Tigers.
See you guys. Go Tigers.